It is Tuesday, February 6th, 6:31 p.m. And this is another meeting of the Bolton Advisory Committee. We're continuing our review of the FY25 town budget. Okay, first up on our agenda is the Conservation Commission. And Rebecca, you're representing the Conservation Commission, right?
Yes, Rebecca
Okay.
Bachaya. And again, I apologize for my voice.
That's
How would you like to approach this? Do you want me to highlight the changes or just go through
Yes.
each? Okay.
Right. So let's see. Can everyone see the budget?
Yes.
Okay. So Rebecca, for the sake of your voice, maybe just hit the changes. And if anyone has questions on the other items, of course, they can ask those questions.
Sure. So I will admit as well, I was out on maternity leave when the commission and our wonderful land use administrative assistant drafted the budget. I think they did an excellent job, but I just want to highlight that as well. So the few changes are we essentially level funded the budget as a whole when it outside of the wages. And the first change was land maintenance was originally during FY24, where we currently are, we had increased to 9,800 over what we had requested the year before. We've taken that same amount and we've added 9,300 of that 9,800 instead in FY25 to the equipment line. And this is for the purchase of a brush hog and additional funds for a potential storage location. In addition to that, we added the other 500 out of that amount. Again, that came out of land maintenance. That additional 500 is placed for the conservation fund. So that's why the conservation fund increased by that amount. So again, as a whole, it's level funded, excluding the wages, because Nanochka's nice enough to calculate that for me. But the other items are taken from the land maintenance item and redistributed to equipment and conservation fund. Are there any questions on that?
I have one question, Rebecca. So the
Yes.
In FY24, that increase to 16,840, was that for the purchase of a brush hog that didn't happen in 24? So some portion of that will get returned to the operating budget?
So that was for, that's a good question. Just bear with me 1 second. I have to exit the full screen. For land maintenance, that item initially, so it was increased for the woody vegetation removal as part of the Bower Springs project, which again, I was out on leave, so unfortunately we didn't get the notice of intent to submit, but I anticipate that being expended and occurring this spring, if not late winter this year. So we're coming up on those deadlines, but that will be expended this year for, again, that tree removal at Bowers that's associated along the earthen dams that are there.
Okay, and that's a one-time expense, not a continuing.
That is correct. Yep. So at Bower Springs, as I mentioned last year during this meeting, we're approaching that in 2 phases after an assessment by GZA along the earthen dams. The first is the tree removal. The second will have to be bringing in some fill material and regrading those earthen dams. We'll also be doing some remediation work along an area that's commonly known as the beach at Bowers as well as part of that project. But that is not included in this
year. Right, I see. Okay. Other questions? Let's see, Don, go ahead.
Rebecca, I was wondering what's in 5,800 land capital improvement?
Just bear with me 1 moment.
Sure.
for land cap. So that is related to, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here.
Take your time.
So the land capital, the land capital improvement line is associated with Beaver Solutions, who comes out and manages multiple flow devices across conservation properties. That also includes funding for the Mass Trails Grant, which ends December 31st, 2024. So we're still working on that currently, and that amount attributes to the match for that grant. So that was carried over from last year to this year in the event that we did not purchase all the materials in this fiscal year, which again, due to me being out on leave, they'd carried that over. I anticipate that we'll be purchasing most, if not all, material within this fiscal year. But as that has not been completed yet, I believe that's why we left it in for FY 2025 to ensure that we're able to still purchase those materials if necessary, if they're not done by the end of this fiscal year 24. Brian, is that accurate?
I was going to say that it's probably worth pointing out to advisory that originally there was a donor that was going to underwrite this part of the grant, and they had pulled out last minute. So we were faced with the only way we can make the grant happen is if we ended up paying for our half on our own. And we thought it was best to actually do that. The trails do need the maintenance. It is somewhat of a safety issue of some of the things that they had been proposing. And just good business to not default on the grant for us to carry through with it. So it's not an expense we would normally seek year after year. And we may not have even really pursued this if it wasn't for somebody saying that they were going to underwrite this and then at the last minute deciding they would just pull out, which was unfortunate. But that's my understanding of why that number got in there that last year, because we've tried to level fund, and that was one of the reasons why we really couldn't last year.
Right. Okay. I know I've seen somewhere somebody put in some money, I think it was the DPW, for some beaver work before, and I was just wondering where is this solely on the town's conservation properties, or just
So,
general?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And I
So-
almost hate to ask you questions. I feel
No,
familiar
please
with
don't. Please don't.
all
I'm
right.
happy to address questions.
Thank
It
you.
sounds worse than it is, I promise.
All right.
So that is correct to say that what's incorporated in that line item in this portion of the budget
Yeah.
is solely on conservation land. What
Okay.
DPW has in their budget is for within the public right of way, town-owned land, I believe. There was one installed this year that I believe they put in their budget, but again, they do not cover the Beaver Solutions or Beaver flow devices on town-owned conservation land. That is our responsibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Rebecca or Brian? If not, is there a motion to approve the Conservation Commission budget for $111,298?
I move we approve the Conservation Commission budget for $111,298.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. Don,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All
Thank
right,
you.
excellent. Rebecca, thank you very much. Brian, thank you for joining.
Of course. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
very
Tea and
much.
honey, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. Thank
Thank
you for your time this evening. I do just want to note very quickly, I know it's not in our budget, but our new land use administrative assistant has been of wonderful support to the conservation department. So I really do support what is being put before you as part of the planning department budget. And I hope it is considered, but I appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, great.
I
Thank
can
you.
add just quickly add to that Lauren was actually a lifeline while Rebecca was out on maternity. Having that professional in place really helped us to not drop the ball on a lot of things. And we've been anxiously awaiting Rebecca's return, but it could have been far more painful without her if we didn't have that person in place. So we all really appreciate her as well.
Great. Okay,
Glad that
excellent.
worked
Thank
out.
you for that endorsement.
Right.
All right, thanks. Okay, let's see. Next on our agenda, we're a few minutes ahead of schedule, is the library. But I don't see any of our library reps on yet. Oh, wait, there's Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly's having interesting trouble with the computer.
Hi, Kelly, how are you? We can see you and hear you.
I am just fine.
Good.
Oh, come on. Okay,
All right, welcome. Perfect timing. We're now up to the library. Let me see. Okay, here we are. All right, Kelly, thanks for joining.
yeah, the trustees should be along in a minute. I know I've got two of them coming.
Okay, do you want to wait a minute or do you want to start the discussion?
I'm sure that this is all quite fascinating to them. I can start and keep you ahead of schedule if you like.
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay, I've got drafted to do this, for almost 20 years. Bob Zach was the voice of the library for this meeting, and he's now out in Montana. So you get me instead. I want to keep to his tradition and start with a summary of the year 2023, just to let you know where we are and where we're going. Probably the most exciting thing that happened in 2023 was that we kicked off a new strategic plan with Hoadley Consulting. We did activities on that from January until May and received the final report in September. It is available online if you'd like to read it, and we did it in conjunction with the town's master plan, which I think worked well. I had a meeting today with the town planner and somebody who's working on the master plan, and it's just nice to have our plans meshing. We didn't really set out to do that, but it was time for us to do one too. So we worked with you, and I think had a representative from the master planning committee on our focus group, which was great. And Bob, you were on our focus group too. The library, I think we can say safely, has recovered from the pandemic. Overall, our circulation, which is items borrowed, is up 6.5% over the previous year. I'm comparing FY22 with FY23 now. The biggest jump was in adult downloadable audiobooks. Those are up 70.4% over the previous year. And the biggest drop, and I'm not surprised, is children's ebooks, because children and their parents would always rather read regular books than be on a screen. So children's ebooks fell 30.4% in that same period. And in keeping with some of the results that we found out from our community survey, people are really, really hungry for connection again. Our program attendance, that's events at the library, things like art instruction and story times for kids and teen activities, are up 109% over the previous year. Are you there?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes, yeah, we're here. Keep going.
everybody's just stunned by all these changes, right?
Taking notes, it's some interesting things. What do you, when you say children books, what age group would that be?
Children is anything from babies, because we have board books for babies,
Sure.
which I'm not sure that they read them, they may chew on them, but we do have them, to school age kids. And not to put too fine a point on it, but we are the library of choice for students in town, students of all ages and abilities, but we function as the library for students nights, weekends, and all summer long when the school libraries are closed. I've always had a bit of a resentment that we are classified as culture and recreation when we're actually education. But I don't write the rules for accounting. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Friends of the Bolton Library for the contributions that they make. They spend several $1,000s a year on the educational opportunities that we provide in the summer for all ages, including adults, and also funding our Museum Pass program, which I know costs them $3,000 to $4,000 a year. And that's the program where you can come and borrow a pass that'll get you into a lot of attractions for free or half off, depending. And in some cases, it's enough to buy lunch. So wherever you go. So the Friends have been supporting the library since 1994, I believe. And they've also had a really good year, lots of new membership, lots of new energy around that. You'll see a greater social media presence. And literally they are the other part of our budget. They give us the things that the town can't, all the little extras that make a real difference in the quality of people's use of the library. So you asked for a level funded budget, and that is what you got. There are two exceptions. One is a personnel upgrade that will appear in the wage line. I'm hoping that you have the supporting paperwork that went in with that. If you don't, I can summarize it.
We
And
have
then of
access
course,
to it.
anytime we have a any increase in the budget, the book budget also increases. So there's a corresponding increase there, but it's a pretty modest increase all told.
And Kelly, can you, for the committee, just remind us that the formula for books is based on it's a fraction of your operating budget that's recommended by.
We kind of have a general person's agreement that it's 17.5%. For a town our size, it could be 16%. We're keeping it at 17.5%. We've done that for years and years and years as a result of losing part of a position during some budget cuts many years ago. So that should be 17.5%. I'm anticipating a question about that Caroline, my boss, our trustee chair, asked me when we were preparing notes for this, and that is, if people are borrowing ebooks, why does the book budget have to go up? Does anyone have that question?
Well, sure, since you mentioned.
Don't introduce that.
Good
If you
idea,
have a
Bob.
different question, I can answer a different question.
No, that's a great one.
I'll tell you why. It's a funny thing that has happened, and I've been here long enough to see a lot of changes in this way, that when we bring in new ways of using the library, for example, back in the dark ages when I started here, I was the first one to put movies on VHS tapes out on the shelves. And we found that we got a whole new audience who would come in and only check out those. So for ebooks, we don't necessarily, we're seeing people who literally come in the building, get a library card because they've heard of all the fabulous things that we offer online. They pick up a brochure about how to download and they say, see ya. And that's where we've actually attracted a whole new segment of the population because we're now offering ebooks. And the other part of that is that the book budget doesn't necessarily go down when we go electronic. Two things, two points for you, is that people here still prefer traditional books, movies on CD or DVD, excuse me. And we have a fairly healthy circulation of books on CD as well. There are huge differences in prices for these items. Again, I've been here too long. Back in the old days, all I had to do was buy books, and we get a fairly good discount. We're part of the Mass Higher Education Cooperative, so we get discounts in state contracts through them. A book called Lessons in Chemistry has been really hot in the last year. So just here's an example of pricing. I used to buy that book, and the retail price of a single copy of it was $29. We pay $15.95 because of our contract. To buy the book on CD, I'd pay $45, and there's no discount on those. And along comes ebooks for a 12-month license, which means this thing evaporates after we use it for 12 months. I pay $27.50. And for a recording that people can download, if I want to buy it outright, it's $95. So we're not necessarily looking to reduce the book budget. We're looking to keep it level because buying in all these different formats is costlier than just back in the old days when we would only buy multiple copies of popular titles.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Don, go ahead.
Kelly, I was looking at your expenditures so far this year, this fiscal year, and you've spent about 70 through January, so 7 months worth of expenses. You spent about 7,700 on heat and just south of 14,000 on electric. And I was wondering if there may be, if the 53,000 or so you've got combined for the two of these might be a little on the high side. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
We actually have kind of gotten out of the business of trying to predict what utility bills will do. And we're looking to you because you have more of a global perspective on that, meaning you're looking at all the town budgets, not just ours. If you feel that there are some reductions to be taken, by all means, we'd like to hear that. I just plugged in the numbers that we had from last year.
Right. No, I don't have any, I can't say, well, you're down 75% in kilowatts or something like that. I can't say that. Just I'm looking at it and it strikes me as you're not going to use all that was in the budget for last year. And I thought maybe we could take a few thousand off for this year to reflect that.
Well, I'm looking at the previous year, the 2023, and we had 19,000 and change in the heat budget, and we spent 23,000. So the
heat looks fair. The heat looks fair.
Okay, it's electricity that you're looking at?
It's really the electric.
Okay. Well, if you would like to discuss that, by all means. I mean, we don't know what you're doing for the rest of the town buildings too, and I'm assuming that we're all coming up with our best ideas about what our electric use will be.
Sure.
But that's where we need your advice.
Okay.
We went through an exercise last year where we were trying to come up with a consistent way to increase both heat and electricity costs across the town. And last year was, as most folks will remember, a little crazy in terms of both electricity rates and heating costs. So I think it remains to be seen how well we did in estimating those, and we won't know until the end of this fiscal year. If I recall, we were a little concerned about the electric rates that we were anticipating a jump. Nahnatchka might remember if I'm recalling that correctly. But I think in the end of the day, and Nahnatchka, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we don't spend in heat and electricity costs will just get returned to the free cash budget.
That's correct.
So there's not a huge risk in overestimating these.
I
We
see.
want to get close.
Yep. All right, that's fair, I guess.
Well, we're just happy to take your advice about
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. I'll be very curious to see at the end of this fiscal year how we did in estimating the costs for this fiscal year. And then we'll readjust again. Okay, other questions for Kelly?
And Caroline. Caroline is here now.
And the rest of
I
the
thought I
just-
joined on time. I apologize for being late.
And we've been joined by other trustees as well. Okay. Pam's here. All right, any other questions? Kelly, can you clarify the wages increase? Is that an increase in hours?
It is not an increase in hours. What we proposed to the finance team and town administrator, and again, I hope you have this document. If you don't, I can send it over, was to resurrect the position of assistant director, which was eliminated in December of 2009, not by the library administration's choice. We are actually wanting to resurrect or revive that job description and then combine it with technical services librarian. That's partly as a result of our strategic planning effort, and I think maybe Caroline could, Caroline, I'm going to put you on the spot and
Yeah, no, totally fine.
talk
Yeah,
a little bit about where we see the staff going, where we see the library going as a result of doing this survey.
sure. I mean, so there's really two things. One, in seeking this, what is now an approved position, we're identifying as the technical librarian as the focal point for this promotion, because the library, Kelly alluded to, and maybe give more details before I joined, is becoming much more of a digital resource. So we wanted to ensure that we had the right skill set and invested in the right skills and leadership from a technology perspective. So that's why when we needed to backfill the technical librarians, Kelly and I collaborated on the interview process and the selection process to ensure that we had someone with a really solid current skill set and a great enthusiasm to continue very long term, right? So we need that kind of foundation. So that's how we kind of centered in on the technical librarian is the source of the candidate who we wanted to promote. The other factors for needing this position that was approved to be resurrected is quite simply, right, the volume and the variety of the content and the services that the library provides is increasing. So that's one thing, right? So we wanted to ensure that we've got the right kind of administrative backup for Kelly to not only help manage the variety of things coming in, but also to help manage individuals and manage day-to-day activities so that Kelly can be freed up in two ways to actually think about our vision, right, of what the library needs to be in 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, right, to really think about the implications of our long-range plan and make sure that we execute against that. And then the second thing is because we now have the long-range plan filed, we need Kelly to have more time to really be focused on identifying and prioritize and applying for grant money. So those are some of the core things. And then sadly, but pragmatically, Kelly has been with us 25 years. As much as I'm sure this town would love to have her as our director for another 25, that's just not practical. So we needed to take a step back and think about our succession planning. So there's more, but those are really the highlights for why we feel this is the right time and the right kind of staffing strategy to really start to execute and bring this role back.
All right, great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? There are no other questions. Is there a motion to approve the library budget for $559,703?
I move we approve the library budget for $559,703.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. Don,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, great.
Thank you.
Caroline, thank you very much. Thanks for joining and answering all of our questions.
Wow,
Good one.
that was a pleasure.
Right.
All right. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you, you too.
Okay, next on our agenda is our IT services. Unfortunately, Paul McKenzie is ill tonight and is not going to be able to make it. So we're going to have to postpone that agenda item. We've asked our building inspector to join early and fill in that slot, but I don't think he's here yet because
Hello,
we're.
yes, hello,
Oh,
can you
Mike.
hear me? Yeah, I was told it was at 7:20 and I just happened to log in while you were speaking.
Well, it is at 7:20, but we're ahead of schedule, so this works out perfect.
No, that's great. Can you see me okay? I don't know.
Yep. Now we can see it just fine. We
Okay.
can hear you fine.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. I will, actually, Mike, can you see this spreadsheet that I'm showing here?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Oh,
I
okay,
do.
good.
Yeah, I do have my budget in front of me.
Okay, great. So I'm going to move up here and we're going to start in section 241, building inspector. And
I can, if you'd like, I can go down the numbers with you from what I have in front of me that Kristen gave me. I'm assuming it's the same.
sure, that would be great.
Okay, so we have my wages, which went from in 2023 from 28 to 28,000, and now roughly, as you see, 33,072. You see that?
Right, and actually we're looking at actually the requested numbers for 25, the 34,063.
34. Hold on, excuse me.
Mike, you might have it without the cost of living increase.
Oh yeah, that's probably because it's just that little bit off.
Yeah.
And this is what Kristen gave me as the numbers, and it has the 40B in it. So I'm assuming this is the accurate one.
Yeah, the total is 138,416.
Yeah, that's got to be it because my total is 134,143. So adjusting those numbers, or at least those couple of numbers, I can still speak on behalf of the numbers.
Okay, yep, keep going.
Okay, so basically the salary increase is basically the increase that we would normally get as town employees get. My assistant, as you know, is Chris Rogers. He has his local certification, which is great. He did a great job at that. And he's currently working on his commissioner's exams right now. The intent is, if the town so desires, when kind of fulfilled myself with the job here, it would be a great thing for Chris to be able to step in as he's doing now. I'm finally able to take some vacations and things of that nature after the 15 years or so I've been here. So it's really worked out well, and I think he's going to have a great future here for the community if the town so desires at some point. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, but I don't think Chris wants to jump in quite yet. But outside of that, it's working out great. So he's got that small budget number there, and that's to cover the Saturday that I might take off so that I can do a long weekend and go see my grandchildren and things of that nature. So that's working out great. So a small stipend for Chris as he takes the time to fill in. As you know, we have the 40B project coming up after July sometime. They should be submitting and finalizing all of their documents for the building permits for the 40B project, which that line item of $100,000 is in addition to the revenue that the town would have taken in from the building permit also. This is to cover the additional inspections, which are gonna be quite a few of them by all of the inspectors, and that will be divvied up based on the amount of inspections done with an agreed upon hourly or inspection fee per inspection, which is how that is generally done. That's generally done. I've been involved in many 40B projects out in Grafton for 9 years actually, and I started on the Pondside project when Frank Chrysler was the building official for the town of Bolton way back, and that's how I started with the town. But this is how it's commonly done. So that line item is divvied up again: fire department, electrical inspector, plumbing inspector, gas inspector, building inspector. And then we get down to vehicle maintenance. My vehicle maintenance, actually, that line item, gas goes up, gas goes down, gas goes way up, right? But with that item, I've never asked for an increase since I've gotten that, which is since probably the beginning of my tenure here, and it works. You know, I beat up my vehicles a little bit, but you know, it's covering it enough. And so, you know, I'm the type that I don't really care to ask for increases on anything if I don't have to. I understand how it works. The training is there. That's to cover some of Chris's classes that you need to pay for in order to get your certifications. There is outside training that we can do. A lot of my training can come out of that, but I've sacrificed that for Chris so that he can get his training done now for the commissioners. And I go to a lot of the local meetings that we have for accreditation, recertification credits, and they're local, so it doesn't cost me anything to go to them. I just drive myself to them and go. So that's the line item for training for Chris. And the supplies, that's for pens, paper, things of that nature. And we are going to be hopefully receiving a new building code, the 10th edition, by hopefully July. They said it was going to be almost a year ago. And I just read in the code word that the state sends out to us, a bulletin, that right now the 10th edition of the Massachusetts Code is in its hearing stage. It has been approved, but now it goes through 18 hearings in the next 3 weeks out in Boston and in Springfield. So when that comes into play, part of that supply would be to actually, even though everything is online, it is very beneficial to have the book sometime in front of you. It just works. And so that's those are the line items with the total at the end, with which Nanachka mentioned. And that's pretty much the building department's budget.
All right, questions for Mike? Mike, I have a question.
Sure.
100,000 for the 580 Main Street inspections this year. Have you expended some of that? How's that going?
No, not at this point. They have not been in the permitting. They're in the design phase. I have gone over there for a couple of meetings with the developer, got acquainted with what's going on over there, and been there a couple of times, but not relative to the new construction that would be taking place under that project. And again, that basically is going to pretty much cover, if you took the number of units times the number of inspections by each inspector, similar to building a home. Every one of those every single unit needs to be looked at, and by the building department, a minimum of 4 times each unit. So that's all divvied up, and just it basically covers the cost to get out of there, to get over there rather, and do the inspections for the inspector, because that will be outside of what we normally would be doing through this department.
Right. Okay. So
And
you're basically
very common.
Okay. So you're rolling over that amount from 24 to 25, basically.
Yes, and I'm assuming at the end of the day, I know that they did have an agreement that if it costs more, that they would replenish the account. This may have been at a determined number instead of a revolving 10,000 in the account until the project's done. We multiplied out the number of units. We talked about the number of inspections. I talked to the fire chief. I talked to the other inspectors about how many they anticipated doing. So we've got a pretty good idea. And the developer has been very open about this. It is the normal process. And I think it's gonna go very well.
Okay. All right, other questions for Mike? If not, is there a motion to approve the building inspector budget for 138,416?
I move we approve the building inspector budget for $138,416.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. Don,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, excellent.
Okay.
Next up,
Thank-
plumbing
thanks,
and
Bob.
gas.
Okay, thanks. Oh, you want to go down all of them?
So, yep. And
Basically, they get paid a certain percent. I'm just looking at the numbers for the 25 request. That's obviously the line item for the plumbing inspector, for the wiring inspector, and all they really do is they threw $150 in for the wiring inspector because we had an issue where it didn't work last year. It was problematic on an inspection. So we said, in the event that something similar comes up, there's something in the budget that you can get out there and resolve the problem and the issue. It was something that generally doesn't happen. I can't think of it right now, but it did become an issue because the assistant inspector at that time was under the impression that he was getting a certain dollar amount, maybe, or something happened. But that was all worked out and worked out fine. That was for the wiring inspector. And then I really don't get involved with, as far as, he's got his salary in the extra, and the other one's just the salary. I don't really get involved with I see emergency management on that line. I'm really not involved in them.
yeah, no, that one's not yours. Just 243 and 244. Okay, any questions for Mike on either the plumbing and gas inspector line or the wiring inspector line? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the plumbing and gas inspector budget for 20,733?
I move we approve the plumbing and gas inspector budget for $20,733.
I'll second that.
Roll call. Don,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you.
And, oh, wait, one more, Mike, hold
Yeah.
on.
Yep.
And do we have a motion to approve the wiring inspector budget for $24,011?
I move we approve the wiring inspector budget for $24,011.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. Don,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, Mike,
All
thank
right.
you very much for joining.
Yep, thank you.
Go. Thanks
Have a
for
nice
joining
evening.
early, too.
You too.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. And the last budget item on our agenda is the Council on Aging. And we are ahead of schedule. And I don't see any Council on Aging reps. Okay, we could hit some advisory committee business while we're waiting. No transfer requests that I'm aware of. So, two items though to discuss. So one is I wanted to see where we stand on our review of the financial policies document. I've received some feedback from folks, and so I appreciate the feedback to those who provided it. Feedback that we haven't gotten yet. How are folks feeling? Is it doable in the next few weeks to do a review and get some thoughts back, even if the thought is no changes are required?
Yeah, Bob, I don't expect, I've gone through the document one time. I don't expect there to be much in the way of changes, but I'll get that feedback to you.
Great, that would be great. So the process going forward for that document review, once I've collected all the feedback, we will discuss it. We'll put it on the agenda. We will discuss it as a committee because there have been in a few cases some recommendations for changes. After we've discussed it, we'll send it out to the finance committee or the finance team, get some of their feedback. Once we've incorporated all of that, we'll vote on it as a committee, and then we'll present it to the select board, and they can vote on it if they so choose. And once approved, we'll have a revised document. So that's the plan going forward. I would love to have all of that done prior to town meeting, if we can get there. Any questions on that? Okay, the other thing I wanted to discuss real quick is just the schedule going forward. So we're planning to meet next week on Tuesday, the 13th. We are not meeting on Tuesday, the 20th. And then Tuesday, the 27th is a tri-town meeting with the school district, when the school district will present their budget to all three towns. So we'll have all the financial advisory committees present. It's worth noting that meeting starts at 6 p.m. on the 27th. So just be aware of that.
Quick question, if I may, Bob. Is there a place we could get more information on the school budget before the 27th?
Traditionally, they have sent out some information in advance. I don't think they meet and decide until something like the 19th or something like that, 17th, 19th. So
okay,
they don't know yet either, but they usually send something out a few days in advance.
Well, actually, this is Stan. If you go to the Neshoba Regional School District website and go down to the school committee, you'll find in their planned meeting for tomorrow, there is a revised presentation that Downing has done with updates to the budget. So if you go there, I was looking at it earlier today, and you'll see what the latest snapshot is and issues relative to cuts in state funding and what they're going to do potentially as cuts to their budget. So you'll find it all there.
and
At least what they're going to present tomorrow.
okay. That's the NRSD school committee site.
Yep.
For tomorrow's meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
under meeting materials, you'll find it there.
Very good. Thank you, Stan.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay, any questions on the committee meeting schedule going forward? If not, I see that Lisa and Pandy have joined us. Thanks for joining early. Perfect timing.
How are you?
We're good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Excellent. All right, we're up to your portion of the budget. Let me get to the right section. Okay, here we are, 541, Council on Aging. Let's see, Lisa, do you want to just briefly walk us through the budget lines?
Sure, be happy to. So purchase of services is staying at 3,800. And just to give you an idea of what we do with purchase of services, those would be our bus trips that we take. We take a 2 to 3 a year. We also do a health fair. They pay for our MCOA dues, Massachusetts Council on Aging dues, vendors who come in and do educational programs, things like that. So, so that's that. Software support. We have My Senior Center software, and that is the yearly fee that we pay for upgrades and maintenance. The building lease remains almost the same. There was an $11 increase starting in October that will take us through the rest of the year. But otherwise that remains almost steady. Phone still remains at 600. Cable, we kept at 1,200. and supplies. So to give you an idea of what supplies, so the supplies are at 4,500 again. That would be stamps for our monthly newsletter. That's actually very costly for us to send that out, but we feel like we get more participation when people have a paper copy, given the population we deal with too. We can't, they don't have access always to internet. So we do a lot of the paper copies. We get our supplies for the senior center from Market Basket. And that covers that. And then luncheons that we have accompanying our programs. And then sort of anything else that comes up in terms of supplies for the senior center or Council on Aging.
All right, great. The increases in salary and wages.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So currently, there are 6 hours a month that is taken from our formula grant from the state. That's toward my salary. And so next year, the town is picking up that 6 hours a month.
Let me explain the history of that. When Lisa first came on, she was working 20 hours a week. And Heather Goodsell, her assistant, was working 30. And it made absolutely no sense that the two of them should be working not the same hours. So I worked with Kristen over the last 3 years to bring her up, the town picking up a few more hours a year, and the COA covering the rest out of our grant. And now we're at the point where the town is totally, they're both at 30 hours and the town is totally responsible, which is where it should have been. But to do it gradually so it wouldn't upset Don and the budget,
Okay, great. Thanks for those explanations. All right, any questions from anyone? There are no questions. Is there a motion to approve the Council on Aging budget for $127,327?
I move we approve the Council on Aging budget for $127,327.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Don,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Bill,
Bob, I recuse on this one.
okay, Greg,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Excellent. Lisa and Penny, thanks for joining. Short and sweet.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
This is
Have
the
a great night.
fastest we've ever done it.
I know. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, anybody have anything else that covers our agenda for tonight?
I was just curious, Bob, if I could see the work papers or whatever we did last year on the heating and electric. Just all seems very high to me this year. Just like to kind of go through that.
Yes, I will send you, yeah, we had a couple PowerPoint slides and discuss sort of our thinking on that whole thing. And actually, in some of the minutes, we had some discussions where we documented our approach, but I'll get you that information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, excellent. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.